What's up, Myth World? We're back in Game 5 of the Myth All-Star match. Again, this is GKG. I'm joined by Dak, Limp, and Eastwind. I'm not going to do it individually again this time for you, Dak. Too bad.
Okay, fine.
Alright, so this map is... God damn it. Limp, what's this one called? I can't remember.
This is Sleepy Hollow Tournament Edition.
Right, there we go. Sleepy Hollow, Tromesh, King of the map. 12 minutes. Um, and Limp, you were saying you made this map. Is that what you were saying?
I didn't make the mesh or anything, but I was just a part of designing this tournament edition.
I see.
There used to
Yeah.
be a big if you actually look middle, there's a big line that stretches across the map. Used to be a giant wall that was there that kind of messed up the play. So I think it was HMP, I want to say, that removed that. I think a couple people worked on this, but yeah, I really like this map. It has really cool color mesh and kind of different terrain.
Yeah, I like this map too. And it's been played a couple times that I can remember in past few MWCs, but not on this mesh, I don't think. So that's kind of why we chose it, because it seems rather unique. So real quick, just to go over the trades.
Yeah, it's unusual.
Go ahead.
It's just unusual with the 7 fetch and 2 trow is not a really common combination.
And Stigs. I like it though. I like Stigs together with Fetch. I always like maps that have Stigs and Fetch, because Fetch are just so strong against melee, but Stigs resist them kind of nicely, and also are immune to souls too. So I like
Yeah.
the balance of that dynamic, I guess. Just real quick,
They even do well against trow to a degree.
Yes, and we'll see that in this game as well. Just real quick, go over the trades here. As you can see, Asmo went for almost max souls. It looks like 18 souls. That's pretty heavy. And we
Shit.
and we did 18 stigs
It's at
instead,
the
basically.
perfect time too.
Did you guys? What else do you guys not
Yes,
get?
Max, yeah.
Oh, no locks. Okay, I see. So no locks for you guys.
And what's the reason for that?
Yeah, what were you guys thinking?
Why no souls on this mesh? Because souls counter Tro, right?
Oh,
Yeah, I think we were just going for we had locks originally actually. You know what, actually this reminded me of Asmo brought this up too. Do you remember Mixed Blessings from MWC?
Yes.
yes.
And
Yeah,
I
we
think
were talking
that was
about that.
exactly like what you guys did, yeah. You guys
Yeah.
did a similar strat.
Yeah, I was telling Limp that
Flag
too when we were going
captured.
over this, because I think Limp was kind of more favorable to the soul idea too. And that's exactly the analogy
Flag
I used
captured.
when I was explaining it to him, or when I was thinking of this, was that
Flag
it's just like
captured.
Mixed Blessing from game 3 or 4, it was, from the MWC 14 finals, where we
Flag
just did max
captured.
melee and
Flag
fetch
captured.
against a very similar unit set, but you guys had max souls. So, um,
Flag
real quick
contested.
before.
So I gotta say one thing though,
Go
we were
ahead.
supposed to have our push flank east, and we're supposed to have more fetch with
Flag
us, but for some
contested.
reason it's only Merc, and that I think that makes a
Flag
huge fucking
captured.
difference.
You're supposed to
Flag
have
contested.
more
Flag
units
contested.
go east. Like someone went the wrong way, or someone else.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. So
okay.
it's supposed to be 2 fetchers, yeah.
Oh, who
It's supposed to be
who
Merc
who
and
went the
someone
wrong
else.
way?
Flag contested.
Rar definitely isolates him, and
It was supposed to be the two fetch people.
Oh,
So
so
I don't know
Kroon,
whose end
Kruniak
it
then.
was. Yeah.
Kruniak must have went the wrong
Yeah.
way. Um, I guess I'll explain more about the trade later, since there's gonna be so much action coming up I want to cover later.
Okay, so it looks like we have an advantage getting mid early. I don't know if it's because Asmo's team just kind of backed off of it, but the flags are 6-3 right now, so we could theoretically hold our position, right? GKG's team could hold position for the rest
Yeah,
of the game.
but this.
I mean, not the rest of the game, but, you know.
Flag
Yeah, but it's
captured.
gonna be. I knew it was gonna be more of a BC fight. You can't. The reason we were up 6-3 is because yeah, we just kind of took control of the corners and the middle. So,
You can
but
I think a lot of shit's gonna
You can
happen west, so
you can see GKG starting to try and rush up north up here.
yeah.
yep. So here I am in the northwest, starting to
Flag
push in.
So-
I'm telling Gecko and Limp, Gecko and Dak, to push that north with me. Paris had to back out of the southeast. He was getting pushed. So I was a little concerned about leaving the southeast, but you guys had split tro. I had to push somewhere. They just had to deal with it. I was just like, you guys got to deal with holding one tro. I know it's a pain in the ass, but you just have to make do. And then here we go. I'm pushing the northwest now. Oh, Gecko gets a nice lock shot on Roar's 2 fetch, and Dak 2 is just
That's also when
screwing
the-
their melee up.
Yeah.
I gotta say two things. Like our souls, those are art wrecking. He didn't have to be so far west. He was just supposed to stand by Roar. We just kind of gave that position up pretty quickly. So I think that flank was fucked.
It's so hard. I have learned this many times in the past couple of years. It's so hard to find good soulers
Flag
because with
captured.
souls, your positioning is like everything. You have to have the right position, especially on a tro map, because their whole job is to counter tro, and most soul people who get soul squads don't understand that.
And the other
Yeah, a
thing
lot of
was if we had our
Flag
other Kruniak
captured.
is all the way west, just isolated on the side, and
Yep.
if we had him pushing, because it's like, all right, cool, you guys neutralized that west flank, but we were pushing east, but we only had 2 fetch versus 6, so it's kind of unreal.
Yeah, you kind
Even
of
though
see
we
the
could
map
throw.
complete. You see the map completely change hands here when this GKG rushes raw isolated, then you have Kroon is isolated, gets rushed too. And you have none of Asmo's team communicating any of this happening whatsoever
Yeah.
to one another. That 2 trow are incoming. That any of that is happening to
Flag
anybody. So,
captured.
I mean, it's just kind of like co-op.
Asbo,
just like that.
I think Asbo said
you
it,
know?
and that's why he was shadowing it. But like at that point, I don't think anything could have been done to like save that flank. So it's like, okay, they have to fight it, but then East has got to push hard. So we did push,
Flag
but
captured.
2 fetch versus 6, and I think that was a big problem. We can do
For
that.
sure, but that's kind of the point though, is that like even then like Kruniak decided to try and like press me because I had
Contested.
locks and he had fetch around the side of the map where I'm just like trying to bait him to
Exactly.
retreat.
So-
where GKG
Oh, yeah, he
GKG
wasn't
comes in and
gonna-
rushes, it's like you should have been
Flag.
back there watching what was going on with your team instead of trying to BC someone blindly. And that
Flag captured.
that happened to
I think that
RAR
was
to
a
a
big
degree
point.
there.
Yeah.
Flag
And
contested.
that kind of turned the match on its head right here.
Yeah, pretty much.
Our-
Flag
Ours did a
captured.
really good job with his 3 fetch.
Flag captured.
Like holding that was
Flag.
really
Yeah, he
hard.
did.
Really hard to do in the face of that trow, and this was possibly his best game, I would say.
Flag contested.
Yeah, that's really hard to have that not just all of a sudden get turned
Flag
over
Yeah.
really quick with
captured.
Trout doing some really good kicking.
Yeah.
I honestly think I think that Adrenaline was a little bit under aggressive here, melee and stuff backing him up. I think that they could have probably overwhelmed this a lot earlier.
Flag.
I don't know.
I
It's
don't
like,
know either.
They had spids, but like if we just needed more fetch. I think that was the key that was missing.
Definitely.
Diggs do a pretty good job versus Tro, I feel.
Flag captured.
Yeah, the game's pretty much over just about now.
Flag.
We're just kind of mopping things up. Gecko just crashed,
Flag.
so I handed off his units to Slate because he was there.
Yeah, it was over, so it doesn't matter.
Flag captured.
I have to say, Roar, when you guys were talking about like Asmo's team not communicating very much, Roar is maybe doing like 50 to 60, like 70% of
captured.
that entire team's
5
communication.
minutes
Like he's
remaining.
like the only one that's
Oh,
really
yeah.
trying to coordinate shit, you know?
Contested. Flag captured.
He's the most communicative by a mile, and that's pretty great.
Yeah, so I mean,
Flag
props to Roar.
captured.
He's really, trying to help out with shit, and he did good. Can't hate on
Well, I
his
think
performance.
this is where Asmo checked out too, because he was like after the previous game, I think he was just, he just wasn't feeling it. So
Flag
Plus, this
captured.
was I mean,
I think that played into
it
it.
ended the match like as far as who would win, since this was our fourth win. So
Yeah. So
I was telling Limp that I felt this would be our weakest map, but I was definitely wrong.
I was
Team
definitely
eliminated.
disagreeing with that.
Yeah. So, looking at the stats, I just rape-faced because that's what happens when you get two Tro that can kind of roam freely and pick off stuff with fetch support and everything else. So, and Dak and
It looks like Merc had a good game for them too this time, because we've been ragging on him a lot for the whole series, really.
yeah. So here's the thing, though. Merc was the fetch guy that was behind Adren's Tro, who there was no, he had the Tro support there, so it's kind of somewhat expected, at least.
that's where Kroon should have been too, but he had
Yeah.
those.
I would have to agree with you. Kroon should have been East. That would have made that East a lot more difficult to deal with. We might have responded differently than we had, but things could have definitely. Limp, for example, Limp did a good job. He with how he retreated from Kroon's flank, because Limp only had one lock, and going against two fetch, I mean, he's not gonna win that fight. It's a mismatch of squads completely. So
Yeah.
he just pulled
Yeah,
out.
I'm not going to fight that, but I hope to draw Kroon's attention away from that, so maybe GKG can rush RAR like he did.
Right. That's a classic example of being overextended, and especially when you're doing a heavy soul trade, you can't overextend. Yeah, with a heavy soul trade going against a heavy melee trade, it's like it's almost like I like to use the analogy of mixed martial arts, where we as the heavy melee trade are trying to put an arm bar. We're trying to spread you guys out and put you in a giant arm bar across the whole map. And it's your guys' job to not let us do that, not let you spread out so much and overextend, because then we're just
Kind of
going to
did it
pick
for you
stuff
guys
off.
though in the start. And yeah, I have to say, Asmo didn't even want. He didn't have intention of people just fetch flanking that far west. So it was kind of screwed up from the start. I have to say.
So I had
I was intrigued by these lineups to begin with. For my sake, looking at the teams, I kind of favor the black, just based on tournament wins and experience, maybe overall. But
Why
I
are
think
you
a
turning
lot
this
of
to a race
people.
thing, man?
And then the gray team, I think you got a lot of people who are maybe a little bit more active within the last couple of years, and are predominantly seen as BC players. But it seemed like a lot of people were kind of favoring Asmodean's team, clearly, to a degree. So it was interesting to see this play out this way.
I think.
Well, let's also point out that these aren't the original rosters either, right? I mean, it's like
Totally, they are
said
not.
earlier, Terry
Yeah.
showing up for them, Kron, Sam didn't show. There were a bunch of high-end game-breaking type players who did not make the match today for whatever reason.
I agree completely, but you still got you get what you can take, and we still had a lot of solid players. Like I like Argos a lot. He was probably one of the weaker players maybe here today, but he still held up his end of the bargain. So you can't really complain with anybody. Frankly, everyone contributed.
when I made the rosters, the intention was to give Asmo a better team. Not like massively better, but definitely better to some degree. But I will say that yeah, with people dropping out, we ended up having to take Paris, and Paris ended up, I guess he was sober today, and so he ended up playing really well. You can't predict how well some of these guys are gonna play. So overall, I would still say it was relatively even. If we had an advantage, I would say it was pretty minor overall. I certainly don't think
Yeah.
it explains a 5-2 result just based on rosters. Like it was that unfair or something.
Oh, totally agreed. I mean, you probably have more experienced tournament players overall in the 7 players on Asmodean's team because Argos is a much newer player than anyone else here, and he played every game for the black team, and he did well. So, you know, at the end
But
of the
I think
day,
honestly,
it was pretty
it
close.
comes down to smart, like just smart players though. Like that's why if it's BC versus, I felt like a lot of the maps, that maybe the initial ones they were more BC oriented. I feel like only the Troll one was actually a good BC map really, but the second game I mean. But then other than that, the game centered more towards strategy, and in those cases, I feel like uh, skill players that have more
Um,
experience and not just BC players have the advantage. So that's the one thing I'd give your
Totally,
team
totally.
because yourself and like Arsenic, along with GKG, I feel that helped you guys out.
I just also feel though that it was a mismatch of strategies that exposed the weaknesses of the BC players, and that if they had been set up in the right situations, then they could have been more effective and found. If you didn't have to require them, if you have to make massive adjustments at the beginning of a game, then you did something wrong with the strategy. You're supposed to like have a really solid kind of plan that can't easily be put off balance kind of thing. And so when you have to do these massive adjustments, that's when your BC players who are slow to make those adjustments or don't make them, especially without your team's not communicating very well at all. Roar's trying to do some stuff. I didn't see much out of Asmo. I think like you said, he's kind of shutting down. um, you gotta make something happen, and it's kind of like a duality thing. Like, yes, the BC players are weak, but they were also
Yeah,
exposed in a sense too. That kind of amplified their weaknesses.
I think in the pantheon of time for tournaments, you see that the team that has the more specific goal is usually the team that's always the winner. Like going back to BME or NP or whomever, it's like BME were very rushy. You knew they were going to do it. They were going to press you hard somewhere, and you always responded to it, and that put you at a disadvantage. And that's the tournament winners for the most part are the team that are the one doing that, not the one responding. The respondent team is usually at a disadvantage all the time, and are usually the losers in most maps is when it is that way.
Yeah. The other thing I want to say is I'm noticing this pattern of Asmo not really taking much of a squad for himself, and I don't know if he's been doing that most of or every game, the entire match, even before he kind of maybe gave up in a sense, and that's kind of hurting. Like
He
he
had
should take
Tro. He had a
something.
Tro flank in this one.
Oh, did he take a? He took. Oh, he
No,
had a tro.
Yeah.
he was the Tro versus you.
Oh, okay. I mean, he's not.
Yeah.
So, but here's the thing. He did split tro, so like, it's hard. It's hard if you're gonna do a split tro. It's hard to like. I don't know. It's hard to get yourself in the fight, I guess. And I don't know. He only got 2 damage. How did he only get 2 damage if he had a tro?
Yeah, you can't take advantage of much here as just being a single trow with all the melee roaming around. That's like,
So, there's one thing I wanted to kind of go over with the trade, because we were kind of mulling in our mind about doing the no souls, and I was thinking how would we hold against a tro push with fetch support. It's a big concern when you have nothing but melee. Like if my tro aren't shadowing one or both of their tro, if I'm off doing something else, our force has to be able to hold a tro push with fetch support at least reasonably well, and we saw that very, very well here. So I was happy to see it happen. And the reason I think it is very doable is because Stigs are resistant to fetch. So you can actually clump them a little bit, take some fetch shots, and still be okay. Not like a clumped Zerks or something like that, and that's always the concern with Tro, is you kind of need to clump up a little bit to fight them. At least clump up with like 4 or 5 units, and to fend them off a little bit, to get them to back up. And so that it played out the way I expected.
Kind of fetch push was the thing.
Yeah. It played out how
with
I expected.
the being spread out.
I'm surprised you guys didn't get locks though, because actually that might have helped. Well, if you could find an angle where our fetch couldn't block a lock shot, I suppose. But otherwise they're effective against Stigs, so it might have helped. Like, you went 18 souls. 18 souls seems a little heavy. Like, even if you're gonna go souls on this, why?
Yeah, it's a king of the map game at the end of the day. King of the map is always going to favor melee heavy trades for the most part. It just ends up happening that way. You find, it. So
yeah.
And with that many soulless, it's kind of not playing the strengths of the game type when you start doing stuff like that. Just like if you trade for max soulless on like a flag rally map or something like that.
Yeah, if you were gonna go souls on
but
this,
being
12
king of the
max
map didn't really matter in this game so much.
Well, it forced them to spread out. Like,
I mean, it didn't.
If it was another game type, they probably would have been focused more middle. Like they're forced to spread out. I mean, yeah, we won the BC fight, but they were set up.
Play out that way because the BC happened so quickly, but you never know. It just kind of ends that way a lot of the time. It was much easier for the team with a lot of melee to establish real estate too here with so many Stigs and everything where.
Yeah, I mean, everybody did good on my team overall. I'm seeing a pattern with your stats, Limp. You tend to have low damage, but also very low losses. Kind of stay alive for the end, it seems like.
Yeah, that's kind of how it was for some of these games. Like, for instance, this one, it was just, I got the flank, and Kruniak had the 2 fetch, and I had the Warlock. I'm not going to press that, but maybe I can draw him off and make something happen there. That was really the play that I had to make. It was all I could do without sacrificing units trying to fight a battle I couldn't win, and end up making a difference. So that's kind of what I tend to do if I can help it. I mean, I didn't have a BC friendly force.
No,
So I'm not going to force a fight just to get higher damage because I don't care. I just want to win.
Yeah, you understood your role, which was basically to force them to spread out, and they spread out. You couldn't fight it, but they're spread out, so you did your job. They're gonna get taken out eventually by something else because they're overextended. So. All right, let's move on to the next game.
Yeah, I never did too much BCC damage in these games.
Yeah.
Can you hear us, GKG?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
I can tell that there's a lag time.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a lag, it sounds like.
Yeah.
No, all good. Let's go next game.
All right, next game. See you guys in Game 6.